We are now at part C of this very important strategy. I hope you should remember it pretty good by now. It's called the Informal Early Feedback. It's called the IEF to enhance teaching and learning. And here it is again. Remember what it is. It's formative assessment. That means you're sitting beside your student, not literally, but very close to them and having a conversation with them. So let's go and take a peek on there. We're at the Learning Goals 3 and 4 for you, which is to interpret the feedback and also debrief. And you're going, what? Yes, you're going to debrief the results with your class because they want to know what are you going to do since we gave you this excellent feedback on there. So I hope you remembered everything that you learned in part A and part B, because I'm now going to introduce you to something a little bit more different to think about the difference between formative assessment and summative evaluation. So here it is. When we review, what is the end of semester student ratings? Well, it's made by the developer, which is usually the campus and the department. What is it for? Summative evaluation to make a decision about the value and what should we do about it. When is it done? At the end of the semester. And what do we measure about teaching? In comparison, we're talking about the informal early feedback, which is formative, to sit beside, to have a conversation, very collegial. And who makes it? You do, because only you know what is important, what you needed to get feedback on about the teaching and the learning. When do we do it? The 4th to 7th week, because you got to do it not too early so that the students really don't get a sense of who you are and what the teaching is like, not too late because you can't make any changes. So it's just right, which is about 4th to 7th week. What do we tap? Teaching. Here are some examples, and learning. And again, here are some examples that you can ask about. So let's begin, because now that you've created your item, you're getting the feedback. Here's a sample one, and what you see over here are the means from all the students. You're going to have to calculate that, and what I want you to do is take a peek. We start very positive with number 1, a good trait on there, and then we also ask for some summative global items at the very end, which is in this case number 7. And so this is a 5-point scale, and when we look at this, we say number 7, overall, how would you rate the instructor? And it's a 3.9 out of 5. It's okay, but you really want to raise that score. You really want to do the best you can and maximize the feedback. And so we see that actually it's a 3.9. So let's go all the way back up and say, what is it that is having an impact or influence the score? Well prepared, that's the one you put as the first, and the students agree with you that you are well prepared. And we know what that means because in part A, we describe what are the characteristics of being well prepared. If we look further down, we see number 5, the grading is fair. Very important for both you and for the students to get good assessment on there. Oh, you're caring. You give the students feel comfortable to ask you questions. Perfect, that's really good. But we can see at the other items that are having an impact that you could work on to raise the overall score. And here what it is. It's related to explanation. Use your examples. Maybe they're not as clear. Maybe they're too abstract. Maybe they aren't relevant to your students. And also, you could probably do a little bit more in class. They feel comfortable to ask you in office hours, but maybe not in class. And maybe they want to ask you some more. So let's go and look at some explanations on there, because we just looked at the numbers. And so this is another set of comments. How would you advise this instructor? Here are the comments from 3 students, 1, 2, and 3. And number 1 says, you know, it's a waste of my time. I'm getting a B. Now, don't you think that students should be satisfied? But the student says, you know, I don't really understand a thing, and so this B means nothing to me. And number 2 student says, I grant you the instructor is probably very smart. They will always give you the benefit of the doubt that you're an expert on it, and maybe you are speaking too high and too abstract for them. And says, I don't understand a word she says. Same thing as student 1. And student number 3 gives even greater insight, because this student says, I go to class, I don't understand, I have to read the book in order to understand really what it is. So let's take a moment and just think about it. What were some strategies that you would give this professor to improve what is happening in the class? Think about this. So now we come to another part where you're going to do and figure out even more comments on there, and I'm going to give you an example. So remember, the columns are keep, stop, and start. And what I want you to do is to get a piece of paper again, and you're going to put it into 2 columns, and I'm going to tell you what it is. So imagine that these are the feedback from the sample group of students. And if you see 4 for knowledge, that means 4 students mention that. It's not just 1, 4. Now, it shouldn't be based on majority because there might be a student that's particularly insightful and give you great feedback. So I want you to take a peek. It's all mixed up. It's just like some says, you're wonderful. Oh, I think there are areas that you can do more changes on, start, go faster, go slower, things like that. Only you can make sense of this. So I'm going to give you a moment for you to do it independently, and then you're going to do it with your colleagues and share what you're going to say to your students. So 2 columns on your piece of paper says, what's working well, okay? And then on the other one says, here's something I need to think about, and what are some solutions or strategies that I can do to address that area. So I'm going to stop a moment for you to do this. So, remember the assessment? It's a very kind, cordial, talking conversation with your students because they said, here's what's working really well, it's great. And could you do this instead? And could you not do this and you substitute with that? So do your analysis of the informal early feedback, and you're going to develop a script. What are you going to say in 5 to 6 minutes to your students? And I want you to do that right now. Think about this. How are you going to talk to your students? And you're going to be doing this in a group activity in a minute. So how did that do? Did it work pretty good? Let me do you a reminder. Take a deep breath and smile before you talk to your students. Don't do a PowerPoint or a lecture about this. Thank your students for the valuable feedback because, you know, they took the time to do it and they trust you that you're really going to look at it. Start with 2 or 3 positives, which you're going to keep doing, and then what are the areas to stop and start, and what is the action that you're going to do. And then thank the students again, and then proceed with your lesson. This way the students know that this was a very valuable information on that, and they will feel that you really did care about them. Because if you don't, they're going to say, why did I spend the time? That person really didn't care or didn't want to hear on this. So here's the game plan. Develop your early informal feedback, determine the areas, administer around the 4th to 7th week, analyze the results, do it by yourself or with a colleague or with a specialist. That means someone that you know knows the pedagogy well, and share with your students. And so that's what it is. Here are the session goals. Congratulations. You were able to describe the difference between formative assessment and summative evaluation. You created your own personal appropriate items for getting feedback. You were able to interpret the feedback from your students, and you had the debriefing with the results with your class. So therefore, we have now come to the end of our Part C and Part A, B, and that you've done previously. Thank you very much.